Have you ever wondered where the trains go that never make it to the schedule? In New York, among thousands of tunnels, there's a place even the drivers don't talk about. A place where a green light burns, and the sign reads, 5 corners. No exit. The story you're about to hear, it's not a legend. It happened to me. If you're not scared, sit tight. The train is leaving. New York on Halloween, it's always too much. Thousands of clowns, witches, and walking memes. For one night, the city forgets its cynicism and drowns in manic joy. But at 3 in the morning, when the makeup's gone, and only trash and wet snow move through the streets, the magic dies. All that's left is exhaustion. I'm Alex. Journalist. Dragging myself home from a Brooklyn party, we were celebrating a deadline, and all I wanted was my pillow. The only thing moving with me under the city was an old, creaking D-line train. I squeezed into an empty, grimy car. Empty. That alone was strange for Manhattan, even at that hour. The light was yellow, flickering with that tired hum. I leaned against the cold window, and before I realized it, sleep pulled me under. I woke with a jolt. A sharp one, like the train had jumped the rails. I opened my eyes, and the car was different. The air smelled of rust, and formalin. The light wasn't yellow anymore, it was a dull, sick green, like underwater. We'd stopped at a station that wasn't on any MTA map. I was sure of it. The sign was enamel, cracked and filthy. I wiped the grime and read. 5 corners. No exit. The train lurched forward without a single announcement. I ran to the window, but outside, there were no cables, no signal lights, no scurrying rats. Just raw, black stone. Wet. Endless. We were moving through a tunnel that shouldn't exist. I turned back to the car. And that's when I saw them. The passengers. There were 5 of them. Not asleep. Waiting. A woman in a dusty 1920s dress curled on the seat. Her eyes were open, unmoving, fixed on something invisible. Light reflected in them like in wet stones. She was dead, but not decaying. Next to her, a man in a miner's suit. His face was black with dried mud, a shovel resting by his feet. He looked like he'd just carved this tunnel himself. And like the others, motionless, but tense. Waiting. I reached the driver's cab. The control panel was covered in mold, shattered glass, rusted switches. But the digital display was still glowing. Instead of time or temperature, it flickered. 42nd Street. 1957, last loop. My stomach dropped. This was the ghost train, the one old MTA workers whisper about. A train that vanished decades ago, never reaching the depot. And now, somehow, we were aboard it. The train slowed again, but not at a station. We were in a vast, flooded tunnel. Water lapped against the windows. It smelled of rust, and something sweet. That's when the conductor appeared. He wasn't human. Tall, impossibly thin, his uniform black as coal. Where a face should have been, there was only pale, smooth bone. And 2 dim, hungry eyes set deep in the skull. He didn't speak, he hissed. His voice was made of 100 lost announcements, low and vibrating. Ticket. End of the line. 5 corners is for those seeking permanent residence. His hand, long and skeletal like a dead branch, reached toward me. In it was a damp, old ticket. With my photo on it. Taken today. He didn't want my life. He wanted my seat. And I knew, if I took that ticket, I'd become one of them. Forever waiting. I screamed and yanked the emergency brake. A violent jerk, darkness. Then light. I was back. The usual MTA car. Buzzing lamps. 145th Street Station. I stumbled out before the doors even opened all the way. My pulse was hammering. That jolt that woke me, just harsh breaking. A dream. A Halloween hangover. Right? Then I felt something in my palm. A damp, crumbly piece of paper. A ticket. It read. Station, 5 Corners. Valid until the end of your ride. At the bottom, barely visible, a new note, handwritten, still wet. Car 4201. Next at 3 o'clock. Waiting. I let go. The wind from the tunnel caught the ticket, and carried it onto the tracks. I checked my watch. 2:58. Happy Halloween. If you liked this story, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments. Would you get on that train, if it stopped in front of you? If you liked this story, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments. Would you get on that train, if it stopped in front of you? Diary of the Damned. The road wound through the Californian hills until the rented SUV turned off the highway into the old forest. The sun was sinking, and the shadows of the trees stretched across the glass like black claws. Inside the car it was noisy, laughter, music, the smell of cheap chips and beer. 7 friends, Emma, Sophia, Chloe, Daniel, Michael, Chris, and Josh, hadn't seen each other in a long time, and a weekend at the lake seemed like the perfect escape. 3 days without the internet, Chris smirked, watching the signal vanish from his screen. Just like in a horror movie. Don't start, Chloe waved him off, clutching her backpack. I came here to relax. A shame, Sophia whispered with a shadow of a smile. Sometimes nightmares are more interesting than reality. At the gas station where they stopped, the air reeked of rust and rotting boards. The asphalt was cracked, the lamps flickering. Behind the counter sat an old man, his eyes cloudy like those of a dead fish. He said nothing, only followed them with his gaze, as if he already knew they would not return. Sophia noticed a notebook on a shelf. Thick, bound in leather, covered with dust. When she picked it up, a cold shiver ran down her spine, as if the book itself was breathing. Its pages were yellow, stained with damp. Look what I found, she said when they returned to the car. Someone's diary. We'll read it by the fire. No one objected. By evening, they reached the cabin. It looked abandoned, paint peeling, porch heavy with cobwebs. The forest was too quiet. Even the birds were silent. They lit a fire, opened beers. But the darkness pressed in. When Sophia opened the diary, the fire cracked louder. The handwriting was jagged, blotched with ink that looked disturbingly like blood. She read aloud, about symbols, rituals, and gates between worlds. At first, they laughed. Then the laughter faded. Nonsense, Daniel said, tossing a stick into the flames. Somebody just scribbled this for fun. Or not, Emma murmured, staring at the lines unblinking. Sometimes words have power. Late at night they all went to bed. But Emma couldn't sleep. Then came a sound. Soft, slithering, as though someone was turning pages. From the living room came a whisper. Unfamiliar, low. Repeating words she couldn't understand. She pulled the blanket over her head, but the whisper didn't stop. It only crept closer. Morning greeted them with strange calm. The sun shone too brightly, as if trying to erase the night. Chris was the first to leap into the lake. The water was freezing, like midwinter. The day passed cheerfully, but there was a shadow in every glance. Emma would not let go of the diary. You again? Chris asked. It pulls me in, she replied. These words feel like they whisper to me. By evening, the fire was burning again. Sophia opened the book. When the sun sinks beyond the horizon, and the water becomes a black mirror, light the candles, and speak the words, so the darkness will answer, she read. Perfect. Chris shouted. Let's try it. This isn't right, Chloe trembled. Harmless, Michael grinned, pulling out candles. They lined up at the shore. The water was black, smooth, without reflections. The candles flared, their flames trembling as if stirred by unseen breath. Sophia spoke the Latin words. The others echoed her. At first laughing, then quieter. When the last phrase was spoken, the lake rippled. A sudden wind tore through. The candles died. Shit, Daniel whispered. Just the wind, Chris muttered, but his voice cracked. They scattered, but none of them slept. Emma heard scratching at the door. A long shadow stretched across her window. Chloe felt someone sit beside her. She flicked on her flashlight, nothing. But in the corner lay the diary. Open. With new words written. The ink glistened wetly. And then, the words moved. The whisper filled the room. Morning was heavy. None of them had slept. Someone was walking last night, Chloe said. I heard footsteps. We're just scaring ourselves, Chris muttered. But the diary was in my room, Chloe raised her eyes. I didn't touch it. I left it in the living room, Sophia shook her head. At the lake, Chris noticed, the water no longer reflected their faces. It's like black glass, Emma whispered. The cabin grew cold. Palm prints appeared on the windows. Enough, Michael snapped, grabbing the diary. We'll burn it. No. Emma tore it from his hands. Her eyes were hollow. If we destroy it, it will be worse. The argument broke off when the lights went out. Candles flared on their own. And with them came another voice. Deep. Inhuman. Later they realized Michael was gone. They found him at the shore, standing knee-deep in water, swaying. His eyes were empty. Blood dripped from his mouth as he whispered in Latin. Hold him. Josh shouted. Daniel grabbed him, but Michael's skin was ice, his grip inhumanly strong. The water closed over him. A scream, bubbles, blood. Then silence. Daniel burst from the lake. His legs bore claw marks. In the cabin, words appeared carved into the walls, stinking of raw flesh. One by one. Until the last breath. The night crawled by with footsteps and whispers. At dawn they tried to flee. The car wouldn't start. Phones were dead. The diary waited for them in the living room. On its page was written. You are already within the circle. The gate is open. There is no way back. Chris was the first. They found him hanging in the basement. Bloody scratches around his neck. His eyes gouged out. On the wall, written in blood, one has already paid. Then Josh. Crows shattered the window, a swarm flooding in. Beaks tore at his face. He screamed as they ripped him apart alive. When they finally drove the birds away, his body lay shredded, his face nothing but blood and pulp. In panic, Sophia shoved the diary into the fire. But the pages would not burn. The flames died. From the hearth, a hand crawled out, cold, bony. It seized her hair and yanked. She vanished, leaving only wet footprints. Daniel, Emma, and Chloe fled into the forest. Emma stumbled. Shadows rose from the ground and seized her. She screamed as they dragged her down, bloody claw marks scarring the earth. The ground closed, silencing her cry. Chloe and Daniel burst out at the lake. A boat rocked on the water. We're saved, Chloe whispered. But hands rose from the water, seizing Daniel, dragging him under. He vanished in a churn of blood. On the far shore, lights flared. Voices called. Hey! We're coming to you. Chloe waved, sobbing. I'll survive. but icy claws clamped around her legs. She screamed as she was pulled beneath. The lake grew smooth again. On the surface floated the diary. Its pages turned by themselves. On the last page, written in blood: "The end is always the beginning." Enjoyed the story? Leave a like. I want more chilling tales. Subscribe to the channel. Candle, want to hear your own story? Leave a comment. Hi. I write different kinds of stories, some real, some imagined. Sometimes they make you think, sometimes they make you feel. And sometimes they simply let you escape into another world for a moment. Your opinion means a lot to me. Tell me what I could improve, what to add. Or what kind of stories you'd like to hear next. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm always waiting to read your comments. Black Cliff Lighthouse. They called it a place of beauty and bad luck. The Black Cliff Lighthouse, an old stone giant standing alone on the coast of Maine, surrounded by jagged rocks, eternal wind, and the endless roar of the Atlantic. For their honeymoon, Kyle and Lisa chose it deliberately. A week of silence. A place where no one would find them. They arrived at noon. The sun lit up the weathered facade, but the moment they stepped inside, the light vanished, swallowed by the cold stone walls. Lisa laughed. Kyle carried the suitcases. For a brief, fragile moment, they felt safe. That was their mistake. The game begins. By afternoon, they were in the small keeper's room, setting the table for lunch. Kyle opened a bottle of wine. As he turned, something caught his eye, a single red rose lying on the floor. It hadn't been there a second ago. "Was that you?" he asked. Lisa shook her head. Her smile faded. A metallic click echoed through the air. The door had locked, from the outside. Through the small window, they caught a glimpse of something. A shadow. And then nothing. The phone line was dead. They were alone. The wall opposite them began to change. Cracks split the paint, and jagged letters carved themselves into the plaster, one by one. The game has begun. One rule, only one survives. Or perhaps none. The game with Kyle. By 6 o'clock, panic had turned into pure, paralyzing fear. They heard footsteps above them, heavy, deliberate. Then, a folded piece of paper slid under the door. It was a hand-drawn map of the lighthouse. A red line marked one path, the way of the key. Together, Kyle whispered. But Lisa saw his eyes flick toward the words written on the back. Only one may enter. The other waits. Time, 1 hour. The madman had chosen Kyle first. The door opened. Kyle ran through the narrow passage leading to the machinery room. It was empty, except for a table, a hammer, and a key lying in the center. He reached for it. Pain exploded through his leg. He fell, screaming, as his Achilles tendon was sliced clean through. From the shadows, a figure emerged, wearing the salt-stained coat of a lighthouse keeper. A filthy cloth mask covered his face, stitched into a permanent, twisted smile. "Running, Kyle." The voice was dry and dead, like wind through a crypt. The man picked up the hammer. He broke Kyle's fingers one by one, each crack echoing through the tower. "You have a choice," the man rasped. "The key opens the door, but there's only one. Take it, and your wife dies. Refuse, and you pay her price." Kyle, shaking, bleeding, pointed at the key. He chose her. The man smiled behind the mask. He tied the key to a thin rope, lowered it into the vent shaft, and shoved Kyle toward the stairs. Barely alive, Kyle dragged himself back to the keeper's room, where Lisa was waiting. Midnight. He collapsed at her feet, his hands mangled, his legs shredded. He tried to speak, but only a broken sound came out. He looked toward the vent, the faint glint of the key. Lisa crawled to him, sobbing, and froze. The man was behind him. Silent. Waiting. The machete struck with brutal force. The blade tore through Kyle's back, bursting through his chest. Blood soaked the floor, the walls, her dress. Kyle's body fell. His eyes stayed open. Lisa screamed, a sound that wasn't human. The man tilted his head. "Your husband chose you," he said softly. "But you must earn that key." He set 2 jars in front of her, one with salt, one with vinegar. Beside them, a pair of rusted pliers. "Your eyes saw him die. Now you must pay. 3 fingernails, or 1 eye. Choose." Lisa's breath came in shallow gasps. She stared at her husband's body. There was no choice. She chose the pain. Under the man's watch, she tore out 3 nails, one by one. Each scream was his pleasure. When she finished, he poured the salt and vinegar over her wounds. She didn't even cry this time. The man smiled. "Brave girl," he said. "You've earned your prize." He dropped the key. Dawn. 4 a.m. Lisa unlocked the door with trembling, blood-soaked hands. She stumbled into the cold hallway. The air smelled of salt and death. The only thought in her mind, the top. If she could reach the keeper's room, the old radio, maybe she could call for help. Step by step, she climbed the spiral stairs, her breath ragged, her vision blurring. Below her, the silence of death. Above her, the whisper of the wind. The radio was there, ancient, covered in dust. She turned the knobs, searching for life, for hope, for anything. And then she froze. He was there. Sitting in the old keeper's chair. Watching her. "Did you really think I'd let you go?" His voice was calm now, almost gentle. "I wanted you to see hope, so you'd understand what hopelessness really means." He stood. She grabbed a heavy metal object and swung it hard. The blow struck his head. The mask tore free. The face beneath was plain, ordinary, and completely dead inside. Somehow, that was the worst part. She turned toward the window, but the machete struck again, both her knees shattered. Lisa screamed, collapsing. The man leaned close. With the tip of his blade, he carved a single letter into her forehead, a deep, bleeding L. "Loser," he whispered. "Now you're mine." Her final sight was the sunrise, painting the ocean blood red. The search. By 8 o'clock that morning, the next caretaker found the lighthouse door ajar. Inside, silence. And blood. So much blood. But no bodies. Only a key lying in the corner. When the police arrived, they found the couple's car outside. Inside the tower, signs of a violent struggle. Bloodstains. Torn nails. Footprints leading up to the top floor. On the wall of the keeper's room, written in dried blood. "Too slow." The bodies of Kyle and Lisa were never found. The Black Cliff Lighthouse was sealed that same day. Its beacon never shone again. The Maine State Police still search for the man known only as the Keeper of Black Cliff. They say the ocean took the bodies. The case remains open. And sometimes, on stormy nights, fishermen swear they hear cries coming from the tower. But it's probably just the wind. Enjoyed the story? Leave a like. I want more chilling tales. Subscribe to the channel. Candle, want to hear your own story? Leave a comment.
From the darkness, coiling like a released spring, Scarface burst forth. A single strike. No warning, no roar. A paw, massive as a sledgehammer, slammed into Mitch's face and throat. A claw sliced like a straight razor across his carotid artery and trachea. A patch of skin, nearly to the bone, was ripped from his face. Mitch crumpled. From the gaping wound in his neck, A massive, pumping geyser of blood erupted, drenching the ground and the low shrubs. He hadn't fed. He had killed.
Hi. I write different kinds of stories, some real, some imagined. Sometimes they make you think, sometimes they make you feel. And sometimes they simply let you escape into another world for a moment. Your opinion means a lot to me. Tell me what I could improve, what to add. Or what kind of stories you'd like to hear next. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm always waiting to read your comments.
The Legend of Scarface. Chapter 1, The Broken Road. 5 friends, Jake, the driver and de facto leader, his girlfriend Samantha, Sam, the class clown Mitchell, Mitch, the pragmatic intellectual Chloe, and the quiet, brooding Noah, were tearing down a narrow, forgotten ribbon of road cutting through the Williams Fork National Forest in Colorado. They were bound for a rented cabin, eager to escape the suffocating city noise of Denver for a weekend. Their aging Ford Explorer suddenly shuddered, issued a terminal metal shriek, and died. Jake slammed the steering wheel. What in God's name was that? They climbed out. The world was nothing but dense, impenetrable woods, a silence foreign to the city, and the sharp scent of pine and damp earth. Radiators shot. Must have clipped a rock, Jake muttered after a grim inspection. As they stood debating their next move, a massive shadow appeared up ahead on the road. It was a grizzly. But not just any bear. It was colossal, taller than any man, and seemed forged from pure distilled wrath. It possessed only one eye, which glinted horribly in the fading daylight. The other was covered by a monstrous, fresh, jagged scar that slashed across its entire muzzle. From temple to jaw, the beast was a terrifying confluence of primeval power and malice. It stopped. It turned its ravaged head. The single coal-black empty eye focused on the 5 humans. No growl, no movement, just a stare that froze the blood in their veins. Mitch let out a small, strangled gasp. After maybe 10 seconds, an eternity for them, the bear turned and ambled slowly, unhurriedly, back into the thicket, a shadow dissolving into the gloom. It didn't bolt. It simply left, leaving behind the terrifying certainty that it hadn't been scared off, but had merely postponed something. The group scrambled back into the car. Panic was a frantic buzzing thing in the cramped space. No signal. The road was deserted. They spent a long time huddled, arguing and trembling. Jake insisted the car was the safest option. Locks, steel. Chloe, ever the realist, agreed. We'd be easy prey in the woods. Driven by pure survival instinct, they decided to wait until morning, praying for a passing vehicle or the bear's total departure. The sun dropped. The forest became an abyss of darkness, barely pierced by the explorer's headlights. Mitch, who had held it together the longest, finally had to give in to a basic need. Be right back. Just behind the bushes, Sam, hold the flashlight, he whispered. He only went a few yards. Just as Mitch sighed in relief, the brief moment of peace was shattered. From the darkness, coiling like a released spring, Scarface burst forth. Death 1. Mitchell, a single strike. No warning, no roar. A paw, massive as a sledgehammer, slammed into Mitch's face and throat. Scarface's claws were long as daggers. The boy didn't even have time to scream. A claw sliced like a straight razor across his carotid artery and trachea. A patch of skin, nearly to the bone, was ripped from his face. Mitch crumpled. From the gaping wound in his neck, a massive, pumping geyser of blood erupted, drenching the ground and the low shrubs. Jake, Sam, and the others heard only a dull thud and a wet, sickening crunch, followed by the sound of a body collapsing. "Mitch!" Sam screamed. Jake flipped on the high beams and saw it, the huge, hunched back of the beast pausing for a moment over the body. Then Scarface, as if its duty were done, retreated back into the blackness. It hadn't fed. It had killed. Chapter 2. Fleeing the dark horror paralyzed them for only a second. Start it. Start the car. Sam shrieked. Jake frantically turned the key, but the starter only delivered a series of dry, dead clicks. The car was stone cold. Run! Go now! Jake yelled. They tumbled out of the car, grabbing nothing but Chloe's flashlight. 5 had become 4. They sprinted down the road, illuminated only by the feeble beam. Scarface didn't pursue immediately. It gave them a head start, savoring their desperation. Sam was the first to break. "I can't run anymore." she gasped, clutching her side. They stopped, breathless, leaning against the massive tree trunks. "We have to get off the road into the woods," Chloe whispered. "He's expecting us to follow the road." Jake nodded. They plunged into the undergrowth, fighting through the dense brush. Scarface appeared like a ghost. There was no sound of approach, just the slightest snap of a twig from behind. Noah turned first. Death 2, Samantha, Sam. Sam was closest. Scarface covered the distance in one terrifying lunge. She couldn't even manage a cry as its paw enveloped her back. The impact was directed precisely at her spine. Scarface didn't maul her. It pinned her then, as if playing, clamped its monstrous jaws around her head. There was a loud, wet, sickening crack, her skull crushed like a walnut. The bear tossed her body, limp and broken, into the weeds. It hadn't torn her apart, but it had utterly extinguished her. Chapter 3. The Hunt Jake. Chloe and Noah ran without looking back, their desperate cries swallowed by the dense forest. They scrambled up a small, rocky incline where the forest was slightly sparser. They hid between two massive boulders. They had only one flashlight, which Chloe kept off. "Quiet," Jake choked out. "He's smelling us out." From the darkness below came a sound. Not a roar, but a low, wet, guttural snuffling. The bear was testing the air. It wasn't relying solely on sound. "There he is." Noah pointed with a trembling hand. 10 yards away, in a shaft of moonlight that sliced through the canopy, they saw him. Scarface was slowly, deliberately ascending the slope. "Split up," Jake whispered. "We have better odds individually." Jake bolted right, Chloe left. Noah hesitated. He was paralyzed by terror. Death 3, Noah. Noah tried to scramble back down, hoping to flank the beast, but the bear was faster and smarter. Scarface seemed to know exactly where the prey would be. It caught Noah when he was barely 5 feet away. It gave him no chance to flee. Grabbing the boy by the leg, Scarface dragged him down and instantly plunged its teeth into his midsection. It wasn't a bite intended to eat, but a savage tear designed to disable and torment. The beast ripped open his abdominal cavity. Blood and viscera spilled out. But Scarface, leaving Noah to writhe in agony, moved on. It wasn't feeding, it was hunting. Chapter 4. The last stand. Chloe and Jake were running in opposite directions. Jake, insane with grief and fear, ran until he tumbled into a small cave washed out by a stream. He crawled inside and lay motionless. Chloe, the more logical one, headed for water. She knew crossing a stream might throw off its scent. She found a small creek. Stepping ankle deep into the freezing water, she paused. Scarface chose her. The bear was in no hurry. It lumbered up to the creek, breathing heavily. It knew she was there. Chloe saw its reflection in the water. Its single eye glowed yellow. "No," she whispered. Death 4, Chloe. Scarface didn't leap. It simply stepped into the creek and walked toward her. Chloe scrambled to run, but the water slowed her. The bear reached her near the far bank. It seized her by the back of the neck. Then, using its impossible strength, it violently shook her like a rag doll, shattering her cervical vertebrae. It dropped her body into the water. Her face hit the rocks, and the gentle current slowly dragged her downstream. Chapter 5. The foggy dawn. Jake sat in his cave. He had heard everything. Noah's scream, the splash in the creek, the heavy breathing of the beast. He was the last one. The silence came suddenly, as if the bear had simply decided to leave. Jake couldn't believe it was over. He waited. With the first hint of daylight, the fog rolled in. Thick, white, milky fog rose from the earth and the creek. It quickly filled the woods, turning the trees into spectral silhouettes. Jake, shaking from cold shock and terror, stumbled out of the cave. He could see nothing but mist. He walked back toward the road. He passed Noah's body, mutilated but untouched. He passed Sam, whose broken skull was a gruesome testament to the creature's power. He reached the car. The driver's side door hung open. Jake stood leaning against the wrecked SUV. He heard the sound. A low, heavy snuffling very close. He looked up. Through the dense curtain of fog, only a few feet away, Jake saw him. Scarface. It stood on the road, its massive outline blurred by the mist. It was staring at Jake with its single, unmoving eye. There was no hunger in its gaze, only cold, primal hatred. It looked not at prey, but at an object to be extinguished. The bear stood there for another few seconds, as if posing. Then, without haste, it turned and slowly walked. Its huge hunched figure gradually melted away into the thick, impenetrable fog that had swallowed the forest. Jake was left alone, the last of the five, in the mist-shrouded woods. The hunt was over, and he knew. Scarface had not left because it was full, but because for this night its mission was complete.
Enjoyed the story? Leave a like. I want more chilling tales. Subscribe to the channel. Candle, want to hear your own story? Leave a comment.